Guys, welcome to our first official episode of 2024, and if you guys have been following the podcast now, you understand that it's tradition for NFR to release our very own video on our most anticipated albums for 2024. We did it for 2023, 2022, so on and so forth, but this year is going to be a very special year. With that being said, all of the albums that we're going to be speaking about on today's podcast, we will be reacting live to on our live reaction tier on Patreon. So if you guys want to subscribe, go ahead and do so. All you got to do is go into the pinned comment of this YouTube video and go into the description. The link will be there for you. Baloo, welcome into 2024. It's been a beautiful start to the year. I mean, friends, family, good time the other night. You know, we had a little team celebration.
Yes,
but
sir.
How do you feel coming into the new year?
I'm feeling amazing, man. I feel like with this year in hip-hop, it's going to be restoring that feeling that we got maybe in 2022 when there was quality release after quality release, and we need it. After 2023, a slower year, not as eventful in terms of the mainstream especially. This year seems like it's going to be different, so I can't wait to get into some of our most anticipated, have some conversations about who we think is going to drop the album of the year, and by the end of the video, give you guys a full list of the albums that are set to drop in 2024. So let me get started with that. What do you think will be the album of the year in
Album of the year.
2024?
I mean, we kind of did a similar piece on TikTok for a recording, and I had said J. Cole's The Fall Off.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that album first. I feel like that's the talk of the town, especially for 2024. I feel like as the decade has progressed and you saw Drake drop, you saw Kendrick drop, and you saw J. Cole drop in 2021 with the offseason, the narrative started to spin that J. Cole was in the best form out of those three rappers. And to be quite honest with you, I have to agree with it. And I'm going to tell you why. Looking at the feature runs, looking at those guest verses and the impeccable lyricism that he comes with every single time, looking at the offseason and how well that album has aged in my rotation, even 2 years after at this point. I mean, it's just incredible to see the type of evolution he's on. And I feel like it's going to come to a full circle moment for this album. So let me ask you this, all right? If J. Cole goes into this direction with his career where it's maybe like the bow out, I don't think he's going to retire. I mean, that's not what I'm saying, but it's kind of like the
big
grand
finale.
The grand finale.
The big finale.
Know? How do you feel as a J. Cole fan, like, especially that you've been following his career for the better part of maybe like 12, 13 years at this point?
It is so bittersweet because obviously I don't want to see a 5-year hiatus from J. Cole after the fall off, but I know this album will maybe be his best album because it's been 5 years in the work. He's been teasing this and planning it since 2018's KOD, with the outro being apparently the intro to the fall off. And I think that right now J. Cole is the best rapper in the game. To me, he's like Goku. Like, the more that we see him train, he gets stronger and fiercer over the years, and I feel like that's the stage that he's at, like you were mentioning with the Johnny P. Caddy versus the first-person shooters. He's just refining his craft year after year, and I think that this album looks like it'll be a concept album. As I said, he put so much preparation into it. I think this is a lock for album of the year if he decides to bless us with it in 2024, especially after the offseason, where he showed us, like, I'm here to rap again, and I'm here to show you guys why I'm the most dominant.
Well, I think that's a cool mission of his right now, especially where the genre is going. I mean, I have no complaint with where it's going, but, you know, it is focused a bit less on, like, lyrical exercise and the excellence of the pen, which could be a good or a bad thing. But what I like about J. Cole is that he's coming through and he's using his platform to be able to bring back that good writing. He doesn't have to conform to anything. He doesn't feel like he has to maybe, I don't know, kind of dilute his pen to be able to fit into modern trends. And that's something I really appreciate from someone that's been such a prominent presence in the rap industry for a long time. But let's talk about an album that might be coming out recently. That's I Am Music, or better known as Music by Playboi Carti.
Which is probably the most hyped up hip-hop album of this year.
So this is a great question, especially for, you know, maybe the younger generation. You guys can answer this in the comments section if you guys want to. I was having a conversation with Fajella, and he was telling me that he feels like Playboi Carti is the last of a dying breed. With that being said, not on the pen basis, or maybe not with like creating these crazy concept albums, but the hype, the mystique, the rollout, like, you know, just putting a full force maybe on what's to come to expect out of like that Playboi Carti hype. So do you share that same sentiment that like Playboi Carti, especially out of the new generation, has that most hype right now, has that sort of feeling and mystique?
He definitely has the most hype right now. Everyone's going crazy with all the singles dropping, with all the teasing he's been doing. And I think the reason why is that he's one of the most polarizing and divisive figures in hip-hop. There's always going to be conversation generated anytime there's a new song, album, whatever the case may be. And after an extended hiatus for a newer rapper like him, there's a lot of eyes that are going to be on him because I think this is going to be the album that sends the most shockwaves across the hip-hop world this year. And it's going to be interesting to see if he actually does leave the rage sound behind from Whole Lotta Red. What I would like to see him do, what I think could make him have one of his better albums, is if he sort of does what he did on 2024 in the sense that he's juxtaposing the high-pitched vocal inflections that we've been accustomed to, but mixes that with the deep voice that he debuted on Fiend. If we could have those dynamic vocal performances over top-notch beats, we fucking won, bro.
Absolutely.
That's what we need.
I was talking about it in the car the other night with Nick and Fajella, and I'm like, this album is probably going to be a great listen.
Yeah,
I'm being
man.
completely honest with you, especially for, like, let's say our circle. We've been following Carti now since, like, 2016, more or less. We've been seeing him at live performances from the beginning of his career. So for me, it's been interesting to see the artist evolution. And what I like about Carti is that he could have dropped another album in 2022 after the hype of Whole Lotta Red, right? And he could have just fucking jammed it, especially in the peak of like that rage music sort of like trap festival sort of movement.
Oh, yeah.
But now what's interesting is that he's kind of moving away from that and he's setting a new trend. And I really like the sounds that are coming out right now.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think in one of the lyrics on the newer songs, he said something where it's like, I don't gotta be wild, I wanna be normal on this album, making it seem like he's maybe not gonna try to set a blueprint for the new phase of hip hop, which I'm okay with. Whatever's inspiring him sonically, as long as he's able to pick out good beats, give us a variety in terms of performances, and trim the fat. He's got to trim the fat on this new album because Whole Lotta Red, that was my major complaint, was the actual size of the track list. But let me ask you this before we move on to Vultures, which is another super anticipated album. What do you think is going to be the state of hip-hop in 2024 in terms of the releases that we get, maybe also in comparison to last year?
I think it's going to be a mix of maybe like the new generation that's coming through. So you have a lot of new generation artists that have been making big waves within the industry, mixed with all of these anticipated albums that have to come out, and it's going to be this beautiful balance, bro. I feel like it's going to be a really special year for hip-hop, and already looking at January, right? Because we look at the January period, and I kind of want to go back to 2022 with this. It wasn't a hip-hop release, but Donna FM set the tone for the rest of the year. You got a massive album, a massive rollout to start off the year, and the community was in a frenzy. Now what's interesting is that not only do you have I Am Music, but you have Vultures to kind of kick off the year. So let me ask you this, all right? Because it's supposed to kick off the year. It's supposed to either be on the 12th, which is, I believe, the date on the pre-save link on Apple Music, or you have the first rumor, which is kind of still brewing up in the community. But I don't think it's going on that first date, which should be already happened by the time.
Which already happened by now.
Which already happened by now because we're recording this before. So let me ask you something. What do you think happens with this release in January?
I mean, do we even get it? That's the fucking question, right? Does this become another album that joins the Bermuda Triangle? Who knows? But they got it tatted on them, I think, from pictures I saw. So listen, if you're getting like the logo and the branding of the album tatted on you, that would tell me that it's real, or they're not going to just say, fuck it, let's move on from this, you know? They kind of took a commitment already there. So we'll see if we end up getting it. There's been a lot of snippets, a lot of music previewed.
There has been.
We tried to stay away from it as much as we could just to have a fresh experience for that live album reaction we'll be doing whenever it drops. But, I mean, at this point, Kanye doesn't seem to really be focusing too much on giving me quality lyricism, it sounds like, or great subject matter. I know the features are going to deliver, as they usually do on Kanye West records. I just hope that it's a concise listen. I hope that, Kanye gets out of this rut that he's been in terms of, giving you these half-baked performances that are mumbly and that don't sound finished. I hope that it's an album that is ready when we do hear it finally, because we don't want to repeat a Donda 2,
no,
right?
We don't
so
want to
listen, do you think this could be a top 10 album of the year contender? Not even album of the year, but top 10.
I don't want to say no, just because you never know, right?
With Kanye, you don't know.
You just never know. So I'm gonna say, just based on like what his past track record is. I mean, Donda cracked my top 10 list for 2021.
Yeah.
So if I have to go by that, I mean, fuck it. I'm going to say yes. But regardless, though, I just want to hear the music. I want a good record from both of them. One thing that I am really happy about is that Kanye was apparently working on a solo studio album. So that's something maybe I want to see further down the line for 2024, if that's a possibility. Maybe you get a heavy year from Kanye like you got in 2018, where not only did he drop a collaboration album and a solo album, but maybe he's working on other productions for other artists, and you're going to see other beats from him on other projects, which would be very interesting. I think maybe he's past that now, especially after the rant that he went on, especially, with that little video that surfaced of him talking about how he should have kept all of his own beats, and he shouldn't have given them to like good music artists, which I don't know if I believe in that, or I don't know if like I agree with that.
No,
But
definitely not.
you don't get Daytona, you don't get Nazir, you don't get other albums.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless though, talking about Kanye, is this a make or break year for him?
Is it a make or break year? I mean, not really. I mean, it's Kanye West. Anytime he drops an album, he could drop 5 in a year.
Yeah.
He's always going to get my ear just because he's one of the best hip hop artists to ever do it. But yeah, I hope it is a step up from, his more recent verses and even projects. But I want to talk about Baby Keem because Baby Keem is someone that I feel like has a lot of attention right now in terms of like artists that are on the rise. If we could invest stock into a rapper, we'd invest a fuck ton into Baby Keem. And we maybe already have an idea of an album title or new era, which is Eerie Times. And we saw that during his short film from the Melodic Blue. There was 3 never heard, unreleased songs that were previewed. One of them being called White Laces featuring James Blake. Another one being called Rock Me. And another one called Torch. And they were all marked as an Eerie Times production. What's very interesting too is that on the song A Life of Pain off of the Melodic Blue Deluxe, Keem ended the song by rapping, and these is Eerie Times, and I put that on PG Lying. So Eerie Times, maybe Baby Keem going into a more menacing, darker atmosphere and aesthetic for the project. Who knows? Sort of all speculation right now, but what are you expecting from Baby Keem, man?
I think he's gonna drop this year. I feel like he was probably gonna drop this year. I just don't know what happened. Like, I'm not sure what happened, right? Because you had the Oceaga performance where he had said that his album, like, this was his last performance before the album drops. And I'm like, oh, well, fuck, it's August, right? You got another, like, 4 months ahead of you, so maybe this actually happens.
But you know how it is.
Yeah,
Things change every day.
Things change every day. So I think 2024 is imminent for him, especially PG Lang. You know, like, that's kind of like your poster child right now, and that's the artist that's getting pushed the most out of PG Lang. So what do I expect out of the album? It's so unpredictable with Baby Keem. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to call the Melodic Blue before it dropped, if I'm being completely honest with you. I mean, the only thing that you could really call is probably the manic energy and the unpredictability factor of the album, meaning like maybe all the crazy beat switches, all the types of different voice switches you could go into, the flow switches. So I think that's what you could expect out of the album. But even as far as features go, I mean, besides Kendrick, who's really up for debate at this point? You know?
I know, and what I love about Keem is that like he could be as quirky and creative and playful as a Playboi Carti, but he could also be just as introspective, like a Kendrick, for example. So,
not on the same level.
Not on the same level.
Not
on the same level. But you know what I mean.
I just had to stop you there.
Don't twist my words.
I just had to stop you there.
Yes.
You know?
Point being is that. That's the beauty of this album. Like you said, the unpredictability factor. You don't know what you're going to get. You know it's going to be colorful. You know it's going to be bombastic. There's going to be massive moments on it. So there's a lot to look forward to there. But in terms of other highly anticipated albums, we cannot do this video without mentioning the Metro Boomin releases on the way. We have Jid and Metro Boomin, which is not as confirmed and locked in as Future and Metro Boomin. So out of the two, what do you think we get first, and what are you anticipating more?
I think you're gonna get the Future and Metro one first. I mean, that's the one that Metro's teasing a bit more, on his socials or with snippets, whatever the case may be. But I think JID is gonna probably drop a project before he drops his with Metro Boomin.
Probably the Forever in a Day project.
Exactly, but that was, rumored to drop in 2023. It didn't end up happening, so we'll see what happens. But especially after the success of the Forever story, I feel like maybe he wants to follow it up with his own project. Who knows? But I really want to concentrate on this Future and Metro project, just because you look at Future and Metro. Future had one of his biggest years of his career in 2022 with I Never Liked You, highest first week sales, massive songs on there that absolutely incredible. Then you look at Metro Boomin. Heroes and Villains is one of the most streamed albums of 2023 for last year. And you look at what's happening right now with that album, it's still transcending into 2024. So I feel like it is a perfect match right now, especially for a studio album experience. And I think that's what's going to come out first. So how do you think that album's going to come out, right? Because there's obviously Cinderella that's kind of like surfacing around, that was either supposed to make Utopia or was supposed to make Metro solo studio album. So it's kind of like, well, if it doesn't come out now, where is it going to come out? So how do you feel about that whole situation?
Super excited, man. I mean, anytime that Future links up with Metro for a full project, We saw what ended up happening with something like a Monster. We saw what ended up happening with something like a DS2. You get peak Future when he's with Metro.
Not only that, What a Time to Be Alive as well. Had all
absolutely.
kinds of Metro placements.
For sure. So I think that it's definitely a recipe for fucking greatness. When it comes down to it, the snippets we've been hearing, songs like Too Obsessed, Cinderella, like you mentioned. There's another one called Charge or Change, I'm not sure, but that was also previewed on IG, and I haven't been able to resist them. And I feel like they're going to go for something darker. They're going to go for something that's maybe more up Metro's alley of what he's recently been doing in terms of giving you more of a spooky sort of backdrop sonically. So that's what I want, and that's what I'm hoping for out of that album. But I'll be honest, I am anticipating the Jid and Metro one a bit more, because you're getting one of the best Atlanta rappers to ever do it, one of the best hip-hop producers to ever do it, locking in together. And it's so beneficial for both of them, because you have Jid, who sort of, people say, oh, he's not mainstream yet, or he hasn't been able to cross over to the masses. Well, side by side with a Metro Boomin, that could be the jetpack that sends him.
Especially after surround sound going viral right now, like that's kind of all fugazi. That's out of the picture now for me. I agree.
But for an album, he never had like a massive juggernaut blockbuster album.
He didn't. But he's had his songs though, and he's had his records, and I think that's what Metro could do for him. Is that like, JID's sound is super marketable. It could hit the masses, and I don't even think Metro cares about that. I think that what Metro cares about is getting the best rapper possible to be able to attack his beats. And right now, you could also say that JID is one of the best informed rappers out of any other rapper in the world right now. So that is a perfect recipe.
And that's why it benefits Metro too, because he's gonna be able to cater to the hip hop heads and be like, no, listen, I'm not only making albums with the trap guys, I'm bringing Jid in. You know what I mean? So it's like,
and that's great for
hip hop.
That's great
for Metro. It's great for hip hop.
But that's a great move for hip hop as well, just because it's going to open up the floodgates for a lot more lyricists to come through, and a lot more guys that focus on their pen and focus on the concentration of their pen, and they're going to push that through. So I really do hope to see the project.
Absolutely. Another one of my most anticipated albums. I don't know if you're on the same page. I think you are. Madlib and Mac Miller.
So do you think it actually happens?
I think it ends up happening. Obviously, the last time we heard about it was early 2023 when Madlib said that the album was in the final process of being mixed and mastered, and that the estate approved of it. But we'll see if we end up getting it. I hope to get sort of abstract samples like you would have heard on watching movies, or like you would have heard on Good AM, mixed in with maybe the soul and funk flavors that you got on Swimming in Circles. And there was a snippet that was previewed in 2019. It featured Thundercat, and it was like psychedelic funk meets hip hop, bro. And it was one of the best things I ever laid ears on musically, bro.
I would love to see it, and especially that like it would be technically like a posthumous release, for Mac Miller. Like the last one that we had gotten from the estate was Circles, and that was an incredible listening experience. And I just want to say this: I love how Mac Miller's like estate has like really. They've protected the music, and especially for Mac Miller fans. I feel like Mac Miller fans wanted that, to keep things intentional, keep things very pure, keep things respectful, and I feel like they've done the best job with all of his music and the releases. So, they take their time with it, and everything that's going to happen happens. So that's kind of like where I'm at with it. Like,
yeah,
dude, it would be Christmas morning if I get that album. But if I don't get it, I understand.
It is what it is.
I get it.
Imagine getting like Quasimodo and Delusional Thomas on a song.
Crazy.
Imagine that, bro.
Crazy.
Like both their alter egos. Oh, there's so much potential.
There is so much potential,
for this
absolutely. And they worked on that album for a long time.
But what's another album for you that's really the top of your list of priorities in terms of anticipation?
Starline Gallery by Chance the Rapper. I'll explain to you why, right? And listen, I'm not going to stand here and say that I like The Big Day. Of course not. I think a lot of fans feel the same way. But it's been 5 years since that release. And I have to say this, I think it's time to turn a new page, especially after the singles that we had gotten in 2022 with, let's say, I'm not sure. Let me go through some singles that I dropped from them in 2022. What did you have from Chance?
You had the highs and lows.
You had as well, right?
Yeah.
And then you had something else. You had the tongue and what, bro?
The Heart and the Tongue.
The Heart and the Tongue that I dropped that same year. So for me, I'm looking at Chance coming back into 2024, and it's looking crazy.
It's looking amazing.
And he said he'd drop in the spring. Like, getting a Chance the Rapper album right before the summer, like, that has some serious fucking potential. So speak to me about that album, especially for the Chance fans that are out there. I feel like, you know, maybe a lot of people kind of hopped off the wagon once that album started to drop. So how do you feel about this new release?
Oh, this is totally one of my most anticipated, without a doubt. I mean, I always love a good comeback story, and if you're someone that's been following Chance's career from the get-go, then you really know how talented he is, and that if he's coming back and he's waiting, what is it, like 3 years to drop this album, it's going to be masterful, especially in terms of his presentation of the album, because with every song, there's going to be a physical art piece attached to it, which is next level in terms of rollout for me. Never really experienced that before. And in terms of how intentional he is as a writer and as an artist, you better believe that there's going to be, you know, a lot of emotion poured into this and a lot of top tier poetry. So definitely one of my most anticipated. But someone else we have to talk about is Frank Ocean. I don't want to spend too much time on Frank Ocean. This album is in every fucking anticipated albums list for the last 5 years at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And, you know, again, there's a bunch of question marks. Is he going to drop? I mean, obviously now we have more snippets that he's been previewing and playing, and he's been more active on his socials. But I don't have much else to say. I just hope that we get it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same vibe. I love the snippets, though. The snippets are crazy.
They are.
Oh, you better believe we're going to be covering that role.
Oh,
is that going to be your favorite like role? Okay, let me ask you a question. All right, so as like a coverage and journalistic standpoint, what's going to be your favorite, like, let's say, rollout to cover this year, if it does happen?
I mean, I think it's going to have to, like, my answer is going to go towards what album I'm most excited for, and it's J. Cole. So it's going to be J. Cole. What about you?
Yeah, I'd probably say J. Cole, but imagine covering a Frank Ocean rollout.
Yeah.
That would be history.
It would be historic, bro.
That would be absolutely historic.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's as rare as like a solar eclipse, man. But
Absolutely.
Let's talk about A$AP Rocky's Don't Be Dumb, another album where it's like I've almost stopped checking for it because there's been a lot of false promises around it. But it's going to be cool to see where Rocky goes, if it's more narrative driven, how he's going to experiment the way that he's done on so many of his albums.
How has the album changed maybe from a couple of years ago? Because it's been a long time, man. I mean, the album started to surface in conversation around 2021. You know, it's been 2-3 years at this point. So what's kind of changed from that? We do know that like Metro was like a prominent producer apparently for the album. So that could be something that's absolutely massive for the soundscape. But all in all, I just, like you had said, I'm one of the biggest A$AP Rocky fans ever, but I could do without it, or I could do with it. It's at that point right now.
Once we know that the album's out, then that's when the excitement's really going to begin.
Because that's the thing with A$AP Rocky is that I would absolutely adore a new album, but I'm okay with the music that's dropped already. And not only that, I don't want to like rush him or put pressure on him. I mean, he's a family man. You know, he's building his family. He's having a good time. Maybe he needed this creatively. So that's it. Like, that's where I'm at with Rocky, is that it's not as pressing for me anymore. And when I get it, I kind of get it. But what else do you want to talk about, Lou? What else we got?
Yeah, Montana by Freddie, Gibbs, and Madlib. I mean,
so we were in a live stream, and I kind of did the count. I'm like, it's supposed to be on schedule. It's supposed to be on schedule. And Freddie Gibbs is due for an album. He didn't drop anything after 2023, kind of passed by. Last release was SSS in 2022. And then after that, you had Gotten Alfredo, you had Gotten Bandana, and other projects, so on and so forth. So how do you feel about this Freddie Gibbs and potential Madlib link up once again, because Montana was promised, and I think it would be a smart move for them to close off the trilogy. So how do you feel about it?
One of my favorite rapper-producer duos ever, and if there is one album that can compete for Album of the Year with J. Cole, if J. Cole drops, it would be this album. I think Montana could compete for that Album of the Year spot, because every time Freddie Gibbs drops an album of the year, an album, it ends up being an album of the year contender. And you add Madlib to that equation.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue 2014's album of the year was Piñata and the 2019's album of the year was Bandana. I mean, it's always
greatness. And you could argue that 2020's album of the year was Alfredo. That's
exactly,
another thing,
bro.
But that was with The Alchemist. But just to say, I understand what you're saying, because the track record has been absolutely flawless,
impeccable,
from Freddie Gibbs over the years. And I feel like that is something that I would love to see again this year, is just that presence back, you know? Like, especially with Madlib. Madlib gets the best out of Freddie Gibbs, and it is absolutely no debate. Like, I love The Alchemist and Freddie Gibbs. I think they're a go-to duo as well. But if you had to ask me, as a hip-hop fan, what do I want to see the most? It will always be Freddie Gibbs and Madlib, at least from my perspective.
But I'll take an Alchemist album this year.
Yeah,
that's what we get instead. Fucking run it.
Yeah, no. Give me the Alchemist album. I'll take a sequel to Alfredo.
Absolutely.
I'll take something with that. But no, I agree with you. I think that it is a must for Freddie maybe to drop in the next couple of years, regardless if it's 2024 or not, just because you want to see what he's going to be able to do and how that's going to be climbing the ranks.
Yeah.
You know?
Before we get to the list of everything dropping, the other three major ones I had in my list list were Schoolboy Q's new album, Stove God Cooks' new album, and the new Ice Spice album. Because believe it or not, the new Ice Spice, not to say that I think it's going to be one of the best albums of the year, but it's one that I'm very, very excited for just because
you want to hear.
I want to know what a full experience from Ice Spice is going to be like.
How many tracks do you think she does with it?
I think she does 14. I don't think she overdoes it, bro.
She's not a rapper that really overdoes it with her releases. She's
Less
very
is
intentional.
more.
Yeah, she's very intentional with her releases, and that's what I like about her recipe. Like, listen, the comment sections are gonna get going right now, but regardless, though, you look at what's like come out of her camp so far and everything that she's been able to do. I told you. I told you this would happen in 2022. She's gonna become absolutely massive, and it's good for the genre. It really is. It's great to have stars flourish. It's great to have someone that's really like bringing a mainstream appeal, regardless if it kind of plays into my taste or not. But let's talk about Schoolboy Q, right? Because last album was 2019. Crash Talk is not necessarily like one of the strongest albums in my opinion, but it's a personal favorite of mine. I really like it. I go back to it all the time. Songs like Dangerous, Crash, whatever the case may be. So what do you want to see from Schoolboy Q this time around? And how do you think that could also help like the Top Dog Entertainment movement and, Schoolboy Q getting back to a place of dominance? Like, how do you think that's going to translate?
Yeah, I want Schoolboy Q to really make an impact and make an album that's loud again. Make a blank face type of album where you're getting those high voltage energy performances from. You're getting crazy beat switches.
Yep.
You're getting a mix of street talk with introspective rhymes. And I think that what we're gonna get with this new album is a more mature Q, of course, but classic Q. Q that isn't afraid to get his hands dirty on the mic and on the pen. So that's sort of what I'm really itching for. And of course, I want top tier production. Give me Cal Banks in there. Give me some more beats from The Alchemist, of course, DJ Dahi, like a lot of the people that have sort of forged his sound. And I think that it could, again, put a bright light on TDE once again for this new decade. But yeah, man, it's going to be super exciting. But let me take you guys through all of the albums we have expected for 2024. So we have Lil Wayne's The Carter 6.
That's another one.
We have Big Sean's new album, Eminem's new album, which has been teased, Juice WRLD's The Party Never Ends, Ski Mask The Slump God's 11th Dimension, Lil Uzi Vert's Love Is Rage 3, Yeat's 2093, Childish Gambino's new album, Tyler the Creator, if he drops a new album, we don't know. Black Thoughts, A Stream of Thoughts, Volume 4, Chief Keef's Almighty So 2, Polo G's Hood Poet, J-Rock's Eastside Johnny, DJ Khaled's Till Next Time is another one that I had to say because it is part of the list. It has been scheduled. Lil Baby's new album as well. Cardi B's new album. Rhapsody's new album, very anticipated for me. Lucky's Gemini album. Young Nudie and Pierre Bourne's Sly Mare 2, and possibly Jack Boys 2. And I'm sure there's some others that we didn't have the chance to put into the list, guys. But the bottom line is that we're going to be fucking eating this year.
It's going to be crazy.
That's what we're super excited about.
It's going to be absolutely monumental. And that's kind of like the note I want to start off with 2024 is that, yes, maybe there was a bit of a negative connotation around hip-hop in 2023, but you need some slow years to be able to build up the good ones. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we will be doing live album reactions for most, if not all of these albums that we mentioned. It's going to be a massive year, so also turn on the notification bell. And if you guys could get this video up to like maybe 3,000, 4,000 likes, it would mean the world to us. We really appreciate you guys, and you guys always show up for NFR Podcast. So, guys, get strapped in. 2024 is going to be a massive year for rap music and for the community. We love you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.